How did you feel about having these difficulties with your mood?
Again, very frustrated because it was affecting my family life to a certain extent.
In what way do you think?
I'd be a bit nippy with my partner and the kids. Again, just out of frustration. I've dealt with that one as well.
And how did you do that?
Again, it's just about taking all your problems, sitting back, thinking through, and realising why you're doing this, and remembering why you're doing this, and then thinking of a solution and applying the solution.
Did they notice any changes in you
Yes,
in day-to-day activities and things?
Yes. I used to muck around with them, now I couldn't. So, again, they noticed mood changes, and I wasn't so happy-go-lucky as I was before. So they've had to deal with that as well. But they deal brilliantly with it.
Do you talk about these things with your family?
Well, definitely. If I do something stupid, we all sit down and try to explain to each other what the hell I'm doing, why am I doing what I'm doing. So we find that quite good. They understand me a bit more from doing that.
Did you ever have instances when your family was saying one thing and you felt that you weren't able to understand why they were saying
Oh, very often. As I said before, I used to say things and do things that were way out there. And my partner especially would sit me down and say, why are you doing that? Why can't you do it this way like you used to? And I just say, well, I don't know, I don't think the same now. Luckily, I've got the best partner in the world who's got the patience with me to actually sit down and talk to me and explain to me what I'm doing wrong, etc., etc. And I can sit back and think, yeah, she's right, aye, definitely.
And then you had this meeting with your wife present.
Yeah.
How did you feel about her coming along to hear all this with you?
I thought that was crucial, actually. I mean, from her point of view, it was, she was more angry than I was from the stroke. And I don't know if that was a combination of me in the early months of the stroke, just still confused.
You had a lot to think about.
Yeah, and so I was less angry about it, but my wife was angry about it, from saying, why has this happened to us, sort of conversation. It was good for my wife to come to the sessions with the psychologist, because he could explain to her what was going on and why Neil was doing this. But more importantly, it allowed a psychologist to explain some of the issues that I was struggling with, that I would forget to explain when I got back to her later on.
And how was the effect on the children? Because they were quite small, weren't they?
I think that is an issue that really needs to be looked at more and more, because especially if the children are young, as mine were, I think with children, people tend to, certainly if I think back my own time, so Neil's had a stroke, friends are fantastic, support were great. We came back from the hospital, support for my wife were wonderful, there was meals made, lots of support, wonderful support. For the children, the conversation would be, how are you? And they'd go, yeah, fine, because they're really young, and so they're left from that point of view. I know today actually that the effects of what happened in Aaron when they were 8, 3 and 11 has affected them for life, because it was such a shock to see what happened to Dad. So I went to the hospital, the cottage hospital. We went to the harbour and they put me into the ambulance, and I can remember the doors shutting and my daughter, bless her, going bananas, absolutely screaming. Sam, who was 3 at the time, just completely confused, and my eldest son was upset as well. Now, that obviously psychologically has a huge effect on him, I think. And still today, my youngest, out the blue, will say, you remember when you had that stroke, Dad, at Aaron? And he'll just say something completely out the blue. So it's definitely affected them. What the outcomes will be, I have no idea. I mean, some of them might be good, because what it did do, it put us together much closer as a family, because I was there, far more than they used to be. So there were some benefits in the long term, I guess. But I think psychologically it's really tough on the kids. They just don't really understand it. Or to be better, people aren't explained properly to them what's gone on. I think
in language that they can understand.
The language
as
they
well.
can understand, yeah.
Again, coming back to your family, once you'd started to see the psychologist, did you tell them about what was happening?
I started, my daughter, as I say, is very close to me, and I started telling her. She was very interested to find out, you know, how this had actually gone, and I started explaining this and telling her, and she actually said to me within a very short period of time, she said, the difference is absolutely amazing. She said, because you really are now starting to believe in yourself, and you're believing that you can do these things.
So how did all this affect your family?
I kept most of it to myself, you know, both with my partner and also with my, I've got 2 grown-up girls, and I very rarely talked. And in fact, I think I spoke to one of them at one stage, but didn't really. This was my problem, and I wasn't going to pass it on to them. I mean, that's the way that I viewed the thing at that point.
So what's one of the most important things you've learned out of all this entire process?
Just sharing things with people, opening up, trying to create a situation where if you can't find that opportunity to do that, is to seek out that opportunity, you know. It might not be appropriate to speak to your partner at certain times about certain things. They might find someone else, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the single most important thing that happened in the course of that process is moving into something with a degree of skepticism, and within a fairly short period of time coming out with a much more balanced and much more positive view of something, which was sitting down with a complete stranger to talk about something that was very private.